My name's Rich, this is Me, My Bike and I. I'm back rebuilding the Honda VF750F engine. In the last video I honed the cylinders, got the pistons and crank in, got the end caps on and she locked up. I think I've got an issue with the number 2 conrod end cap, so let's go and take a look and see if we can fix it. So it's free enough at the moment, but the minute you torque these nuts up to 30 Newton meters, which is at the bottom of the range, it just locks up and it won't turn. So these bearings must be too tight. Don't know why, because this is the original crank, pistons, rods, caps, bearings, everything, and it was turning before. What I'll do though, I think I'll torque them up one at a time. 30 Newton meters, and wrong size. I got on there 12. Must be a 10. I thought it was a 12. Not a 10. Huh? You're telling me that's an 11? No. It is a 12. What's the matter with you? Right. Okay. Yeah. Torque them up one at a time to 30 Newton meters. I think the reason why I thought it was spinning on there is because it wasn't in any way done up, and it was just very freely turning. So anyway, let's torque them up one at a time. I think the problem one is this one here, number 2. So with number, yeah, it's going to be number 1, isn't it? Opposite. With number 1 torqued up, let's see if it still rotates freely. Okay. I'm going to do 4 and 3 next. I think this one has got a bearing that's too tight, so that's absolutely fine, that cap. But clearly there's nothing wrong with that if that's just freely rotating. And that's very smooth, there's no resistance there. No undue resistance. Anyway, let's have a look at, say, number 3. Okay. I'm just going to get an extension because I need to move the ratchet away from the block. I could do a shorter extension, but this will have to do. It's ready to. Okay. So that's what's that? 1 and 3. Still freely turning, look. No undue resistance. I really do think it's piston or rod number 2, cap number 2. The bearings there that are causing the problem. Let's bring number 4 round and we'll torque that one up. Unless I've just gone Fruit Loops, of course, and completely over torqued it, but I don't think so. Problem when these are hex sockets is they don't slip on as easy as when you've got 12 points. Okay. Okay, so that's 1, 3, and now 4. And that's turning freely. So yeah, I think we've got an issue with the bearings on number 2. Let's torque it up and see whether we've still got movement. I doubt it. Unless, like I suggested, maybe I've gone completely mental and over-torqued this little sucker. I don't think so. Right. Nope. That does not want to turn. So we've got some issues with number 2. We are going to take the cap off and check the clearances. That is so tight now, you can pretty much, yeah, you can just undo that stator bolt, but that is stiff. Well, at least I know the issue is just with this one, because the others are clearly fine. We can take a look at everything as we get it off. What I might do is, as it's all in good position, actually take the piston back out so we can inspect everything visually, but we'll do a clearance check on this side of the pin and bearing using some Plastiguage, and then we'll take it apart, inspect it, and then what we'll do is we'll drop the piston down and we'll get a bit of Plastiguage on the pin from the underside. It's always best to get it in 2 or 3 spots in case you've got a bearing out of round maybe. So let's get to it. I'll compare it to the number 1 just to see, but yeah, let's get the cap off and test. First though, just finding the clearance value that we need. Here we go. Slightly odd the way it's written. So this is the wear limit column over here, and as you can see we have got a wear limit of, so if you're going to do it in old money, 0.003 inches, which is typical. And you can see they've rounded it up to 0.08 millimeters. It's that's rounded to 2 decimal places. That is actually, if you went to 0.08, that would be well outside the wear limit. But we're looking for a range of 0.028 to 0.052 mil. So you can see again in old money, 0.002 inches. So it's odd that the range is lower than the actual wear limit itself. You'd expect the wear limit to be the upper end of that rather than 0.03 mil bigger, which is kind of strange the way they've written that. Anyway, so that's the clearance values that we're looking for. So I'm suspecting we're going to be nearer the tighter end of that if we've got a shell fitted that's just too thick. And why that was fitted I wouldn't know, but we can have a little look at it. We'll look at the colour code on the side. Yellow being the thinnest, green then brown being the thickest. So I've got my Plastiguage at the ready. It goes up or down through the scale, green being the thinnest, and this is for 0.025 to 0.076 mil, so that's pretty much the range that we're looking within. So we just need to pull a piece of this off. So let's get to it. Just undo this again. Yeah, once again it's free to turn, look. So that's going to be quite tight on there, because that does seem to be the cap that's been more problematic getting it on and off. So it needs to be quite effective actually. Even though you're slipping oily metal parts on oily metal parts, they do seem to pull it off just about right. Okay, there's an oiling hole there, just need to avoid that. Okay, let me let's just snip a little bit of Plastiguage off there. This stuff is so thin. Literally just go. Well, let me get some cutters. Didn't even want to snap. Can you even see it? Just about against that white background. Just going to turn this back. It shouldn't cause any problems. Just want to get it to a point where I can see it, although it is a bit annoying. I've got that oiling hole right there, but okay. Let's see if that's too wide. I've got a feeling it's probably going to be too wide. Let's just snip a tiny bit more off the end of that. I think the fiddly part of this is going to be getting it to drop into place. That seems to have gone where I wanted it to. Let me see if I can just strain that up a little bit. Let's get the cap back on, squish it down, torque it down. This is a green bearing, by the way. And I'm not absolutely sure if I've put this cap on the wrong way, because I seem to have marks on either side. That could be part of the issue. Potentially. Okay. Not sure how I managed to mix that up. That's the way I took it off just then anyway, so we do seem to be. Let me just have a quick check. I wonder if I've found my problem. Because do you know what? These, I can prop that there, are not symmetrical. If you look very carefully, you've got a little cut out there that you don't have there, and I think this is very ever so slightly off to this side. and it was fitted this way round, which means the cutout there and the cutout, you can just see that tiny little bit there, and it's off to this side now, is over here. So I think I might have put that on that way and I needed it on that way, and you wouldn't have thought it'd make any difference, but if it's ever so slightly asymmetrical, that will be your issue. Let me pop this back on. It's still in place, that's good. I mean, that could be why it's struggling to go down, if it's just moving slightly one way or the other. Let's torque it back down. We can play with this. It's not going to do any harm testing it and taking it on and off. None whatsoever. But if I found the issue, bear in mind I did wonder why it was fine when it came off. I didn't have any problems rotating this engine. Bear in mind I couldn't really rotate it you know, properly, fully with the crankcases apart, because this sort of sits only half in, if you like. And you know, it's going to have a tendency to lift, but as you can see with the 1, 3 and 4, it was rotating nicely, so definitely an issue there. But bear in mind, this is how I did have it in. I seem to have got marks on both sides, and I was careful to mark these up so I didn't put them back on the wrong way. And I think I've just made a rookie error and put it back on the wrong way. Let's just give this a torque up, because I do believe, I might be wrong, that you need to torque it to spec when you're doing this squish test. Put it that way and I can turn it down rather than pull it up. I might be able to get a better hold of the block that way. Certainly can. Nice to hear from anyone who knows the definitive answer to this, whether you need to torque it to do this test. Okay. Yeah, we've definitely locked up again. Okay, let's undo this again. But yeah, that was a green bearing shell, so you can go down a size. Which is weird, isn't it? You'd normally be going up a size when you're trying to take up wear over the years, but relatively low mileage engine. This was 30-odd thousand kilometres on the clock. I say kilometres because it was a Japanese import bike, and from what I can tell, it's never actually been used in the UK. So yeah, it's got KMH clocks on it. So let's get this back off. Look at the squish pattern, and see if we can take a measurement. Well, look at that. That's pretty good. Well defined, uniform in thickness. If we get the gauge on there, is pretty much that one. pretty much, which says it's 0.051 millimeters. So if we come back to the book, 0.052 is the upper end of the range. Obviously 0.08 is the wear limit, so it says it's okay, but what it's really telling me is it's really okay. It's not too tight. That's got more clearance than I thought it would have. I thought it would be too tight. I thought it was going to be somewhere down that bottom range near the 0.028, pretty much on the upper end rather than the lower end. So let's swap this bearing cap round, rod cap I should say, and see if that makes any difference. Well, actually, firstly let's take a value on the number 1, which is slightly easier to get to. God, I should really make like a little frame for this. Or should have made a little frame for this. It's a bit late now. Cool. Yeah, when you talk them up, I was thinking they didn't feel that tight. I talked up to 30 Newton meters, but actually, when you use a regularly sized ratchet, you can pretty much feel how good and tight they are on there. Right, let's put those in a separate place. See, this one slides off much more easily. Actually, let's have a look at the way it's fitted. Yeah, so you've got that little cutout there, so the bearing is kind of over to the right, and the same on that one. Yeah, this one is fitted the wrong way round, as in the number 2. Hardly a surprise, is it, if I've markings on both sides? How the well, okay, right, let's put some squish on here and see what we get. Probably the same. Right, okay, let's pop this back on. Just undo it again. Don't think there's any period of time you need to leave it. Never have done anyway, so okay. What I might do is not test numbers 3 and 4, but just take the caps off and check that they are fitted correctly. then that's a really good indication, one over there, that we've potentially found the problem. Okay, let's get this back off. It's a little tight, but only because more oily hands, etc. Nothing like the other one. Okay. This one's slightly ski whiff, but that was because the Plastiguage was slightly ski whiff and I didn't really want to pull it off again. But pretty much 0.051. So that says we have got very evenly worn bearings. And as you can clearly see, we are fitted with a green shell. So everything matches. I think we found the problem. I'm just gonna, well, yeah, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to take both these off and just check they're fitted correctly. And I think that probably does verify our problem, and then we can get this put back together correctly. Let's get this loosened off. Paint marks are wearing off. Let me go and touch them up before I really mess everything up. Okay. I'm going to spin this round so I can get a better hold of it. Okay. Not quite loose enough yet. What a rookie error. I mean, that doesn't get any more rookie than that, does it? I mean, it's clearly a mistake. It wasn't just out of lack of understanding. I just clearly, carefully marked everything up to make sure I put everything back, but not so carefully. I just don't quite know how I managed to get markings on both sides of number 2, and I'm hoping that is the issue. Otherwise I'm at a complete loss. The bearing seems to be exactly the same. It's probably going to mess this up now when I take it off, isn't it? I just obviously touched it up on the wrong side, didn't I? And touched it up at some point, because the paint probably wore off, and I probably just thought, we'll just put a bit more paint pen on there, and I might have maybe cross-contaminated some paint pen onto the other side, thought that was the mark and went and touched up the wrong side. How I didn't spot that when I put it all back together, I don't know. Really can't mix these up because I definitely got my markings on one side. So this one, if you can see, also green. That's the number 3, and number 4 actually is clean. It doesn't have any markings on it, unfortunately, but I think it's safe to say we've got 3 bearings marked up with the same colour code, so the other is going to be the same. So it doesn't look like anyone's messed with these. So right, I'm going to clean off this Plastiguage and in the shell down there, and then we're going to put this all back together again, and hopefully when we put this one in the right way, the correct way, we'll be all good. Okay, I'm using a little bit of green Scotch-Brite dipped in brake cleaner, and that's taken it straight off, so that's all good. Haven't left any residue anywhere, so we're all fine. Let's do the same with the shell. That was good. Good job it's my bike, isn't it? Pull that out of there. Okay, so, right. Let's slip them all back on. Correct orientation. I know that's not getting the not getting under the underside where the pistons sit in. Shall I push those out a tiny bit? Yeah. Okay. It's going to go all over the bench, but that's fine. Right, let's pull these all back up and in. All good. Mostly good. Yep. Okay. Right, so let's get these back on and just remind myself I've got a little cut out there, and it definitely matches a tiny little cut out there, and that's really just telling me it's orientated. Let's put the number 3 on. Yes, if you're wondering why they go 4, 3, 2, 1 when you think actually on a V engine it's as you sat on the bike it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, you've got 3 and 4, and then the con rods meet in the middle, and you've got 1 and 2, and the con rods meet in the middle. So yeah, that's why. Just in case you wondered, you probably didn't. You probably guessed already. Right, tiny little cut out there. You can't see it. Got to go that way round. Tiny little cut out there. Matches tiny little cut out there. We'll do the number 1 first. On this side. Yeah, we're all good in terms of orientation. Slips on nice and easily. Now here's the test. Number 2, where we've got marks on both sides. I had it that way, and the cutout's there, and the cutout is on this side, which you won't be able to see, but I can just about see with a torch. So that was wrong, and it needs to be that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly clean that off. Just a bit of brake cleaner. So Just going to touch that up again. That'll do. Okay, can't really give you a very good clear view of these cutouts. Now that went on a lot easier. Didn't have to tap that down at all. So I think that was definitely my issue. As you can see, I'm stalling by touching the paint up again, because the longer it takes me to find out that isn't my issue, and I've still got to carry on looking, the better. But let's get all the nuts on and talked up, and then we can find out for sure. It shouldn't make any difference, but I even put all the nuts on in the right order, like, you know, correct side, right cap, etc. Just absolutely give us the fighting chance of making sure it's all right. So just make sure you torque everything down evenly from one side of the cap to the other. It doesn't matter at all what order you go in. It matters which way you put the actual socket on, but it doesn't matter which order you go in when it comes to rod to rod. Wouldn't appear to anyway. Right, they're just loosely torqued down. Just till it seats and then wind it in evenly. I didn't do a squish test on these, it just didn't seem, there didn't seem to be any point. Doing both on the same pin, that made more sense. The fact that they were pretty much exactly the same. Now this test does not replace using a micrometer and a telescopic bore gauge, but I don't have one. Well, I've got a micrometer, but not big enough for this. I think mine's 25.4 mil, whatever. Yeah, that's not. It's bigger than that, isn't it? It's 2 inches. Anyway, I don't have one big enough, and what you really need to do is measure the pin on using a micrometer, and then measure the actual diameter of the shell bearing with the piston pretty much out of the engine with the caps on, so it's all assembled, and get in there with a telescopic bore gauge, deduct one measurement from the other, and there's your clearance. This is a pretty good way of doing it. It certainly tells you if you're one end or the other, and it certainly told me that I did not have a tight bearing on here as I thought. So I'm going to torque these up. That should turn now, but I'm going to torque it up, and let's see where we're at. Again, the torque spec for this is 30 to 34 Newton meters, but I'm just going at the lower end, which is The only thing we've got an extension is you wobble around a bit, which is a bit problematic when you've got an engine that's rocking about. Okay, do you know how long I've been contemplating putting a spanner on the end of that stator bolt? I just shimmed it there, look, because the bolt bottom's out, otherwise I don't want to go damaging it or anything. I'm amazed I've not lost that wood rough key, but it's pretty much wedged in there. Anyway, I have been sat looking at this for a few minutes thinking, I don't really want to stick a spanner on there and it's still locked up, because then I don't know what to do, because having measured at least these two, number 2 being the problematic one, we discover they've both got the same shell bearings. The clearance is 0.051mm, which is at the outer edges of what it should be, so it's not tight. But we did most definitely discover an issue in the sense that that was marked up incorrectly, it was fitted round the wrong way, and it gives me every indication that I've fixed the problem. To verify it, I do just need to stick a spanner on the end, give it a turn, and hopefully meet with no resistance. Okay, moment of truth. And she's turning freely. That is a result. Well, I really have no idea how I managed to mix up or misorientate that cap by marking it incorrectly, but yeah, anyway, the rod and the cap had enough features on it for me to be able to discover the correct orientation and get it fitted correctly, and now it's all good. So I can crack on and get the engine put back together. I've got a couple of internal parts to fit still, some tensioner parts, brackets, and the input shaft. I need to check everything over, make sure it's clean, make sure I've got all the bits I need, little shims, washers, etc. like that, and I've put everything back together properly, and then we can put these cases back together. The engine's going to remain upside down as it is at the moment. I will drop the bottom case down on top. The crankcase bolts, there are 14 of them, 6 internal, 8 external. The external ones need a really good clean up because they have got white oxide, a little bit of red oxide and paint on the heads, and the same with all of the case bolts themselves. So I will do all of that in the next video. Until then, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you next time.